But we are getting update right now that after that Iran has actually reopened its airspace. But all these developments clearly pointing to the fact that how the country is on high alert.
Yeah, definitely the country is on high alert because there have been severe warnings by the United States of America, especially Donald Trump, the way he was warning and he was in sort of instigating the protesters who are in Iran to keep on protesting, and also the prince who has called on for more protests. Now, what happened in Iran is because of financial crisis and the financial situation that was unfolding in Iran, people were on streets and many are dead. More than 2,000 people have been killed. Now, this includes the protesters and even the soldiers, the security officials, all those who were on duty during that time. But Iran hasn't softened its stance against the protesters, and they have said that those who are protesting in Iran they're working for US. They are blaming USA. Now, US also in the last few days have given stern warning to Iran that if it continues its crackdown on protesters, they will intervene directly, and help is on the way. This is what Donald Trump has said and has clearly mentioned that they are not looking away from a military intervention, and military intervention might be possible because you've already seen previously Iran has seen airstrikes from America during the time Iran was in a conflict with Israel. During that time also US intervened. The US has always put this in forth that Iran possesses weapons grade nuclear. They're refining weapons grade nuclear for weapon purposes. They'll use it for destructive purposes. So that's one of the reasons. And also the US is pretty much unhappy with the leadership of Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini and others, and they also want a regime change. And because they want a regime change, so situation is pretty tense and situation is pretty suitable for USA. USA has already intervened in Venezuela, and there has been a regime change, sort of regime change, where Donald Trump claims that he will be indirectly ruling Venezuela. And now situation in Iran is suitable for US, where they are looking forward to maybe a possibility of regime change. But it will take more time because there are brutal, violent crackdowns on protesters, because you can just imagine more than 2,000 to 3,000 people who have been brutally killed, and people are on streets. Internet shutdown is there. There was an airspace closure. But why do you have airspace closures? You have airspace closures because there are possible risks, because US has been warning continuously, one warning after the other, of a possible military intervention, which never ignores Iran. On one hand, America has also mentioned that the public messages and private messages, the messages conveyed by the Iranian authorities and the politicians and the government is on different levels. They speak differently when they speak privately to the US, and the public messages are quite different. And even Iran releases warnings against US that a possible military intervention might escalate the situation even further, and they will respond even with more brutal force. But situation pretty much what's happening in Iran is still now it's tense. Many people have died because of the brutal crackdown by the Iran regime, and people are calling for a regime change, and people have raised slogans in solidarity with US, with Israel, and that's the reason that Khamenei is saying that these protesters are anti-Iran. They are anti-regime also, they are anti-Iran, and the patriotism point is being raised in Iran. Now that's the reason they are doing this crackdown. But the airspace closure had an impact on many flights, including the Indian flights that were operating. But also US has asked citizens to leave Iran. India has also asked citizens to leave Iran because the situation pretty much is getting tense day by day, and the situation is escalating. Protests are escalating, brutal crackdowns, and this will sort of continue in the coming days also, because the Iranian regime doesn't want it to escalate further, and there is a very much possibility of a US intervention. We cannot rule out a military intervention or an airstrike in the near future, because US has done it one time before, during the time Iran and Israel were in conflict, and Iran has always been blamed of possessing nuclear weapons grade rich uranium in its possession. This was constantly US has been alleging Iran of possessing weapon grade uranium. So there are pretty much many reasons for that, and situation becomes tense every now and then. Back to you.
Absolutely, Shivam, and there are actually multiple pointers and ideas that are in fact floating around, especially with many countries, as you mentioned, are telling their citizens to avoid travel to Iran, or issuing advisories as far as the usage of the Iranian airspace is concerned. And the most important pointer there is also how the US has asked its personnel to leave the Al Udeid air base as well.
Definitely, because of the escalating situation, the situation is pretty tense if you speak about Iran, because Iranian regime has directly mentioned this fact that they have colluded with the US forces. The US wants the regime change. Ayatollah Khomeini pretty much knows this. It's difficult for him to manage what's happening, the situation which is unfolding in Iran, because Iran has never seen a situation like this before, because the regime is very powerful. It has control over the administration, the authority. But this is the first time. The main reason is the financial crisis that people are struggling, because they are struggling in their day-to-day lives. And India, along with US, many countries have asked their citizens to leave Iran, because in such pretty much tense situations where you have people dying in thousands, you can't predict what will happen in the future. So it's a precautionary measure, I would rather say, that US and India had asked their citizens. Pretty much more important for US, because US warns, gives a stern warning. Every now and then US president says the help is on the way, keep on protesting, I am with you, I'll support, this won't be tolerated, that people are being killed brutally, the protesters killing will not be ignored. So such warnings means there's a threat to those who belong to US citizens who are in Iran. And also India, as a precautionary measure, had also asked the citizens to leave by available means at a security situation, because the security situation in Iran is pretty much quite tense, and it might deteriorate even further, and it will be pretty much difficult to manage situation after a while. But many airlines were affected. The situation changes every now and then, because suddenly it closed its airspace, then it opened its airspace. Things will change in the coming few days, or you say few weeks or few months, because the protesters, they are facing the worst financial crisis. Iran's financial crisis is the worst. Their currency levels has fallen to a level that was never seen before.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shivam, for all those details. You keep tracking those developments. We'll keep coming back to you. And viewers, let's move on to the